Hey everyone, today I have the pleasure of hosting Matt Strauss, co-founder and CEO of RiseKit. Now, RiseKit is a software that connects overlooked job seekers with community support, training programs, and employers that they need to rise above all barriers to employment. Now, Matt comes from a venture capital background. Before pursuing his passion for solving social problems, Matt and his team work tirelessly around the belief that the zip code in which someone is born shouldn't determine one's life trajectory. I'm very excited to dive into his journey today. So, with that said, Matt, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Shaheem. Appreciate
No,
it.
thanks for taking the time to come on. Now, Matt, something I found interesting before we even get into the founding story. See, like myself and my parents, like we were immigrants when we came to Canada, and so just like many immigrants, we actually lived in a neighborhood that wasn't the greatest when we first came on. And then I was lucky enough that my parents, they worked hard, they had opportunities, and after a few years, I was able to move out. But I know like some of the kids I went to school with, they didn't exactly go down the right path. They didn't have the same opportunities that I had because I was able to move out of that neighborhood. And so I really believe in like, the impact that a solution like yours is having on the community. So I just wanted to kind of like say that I think you're doing something really great, and I'm really excited to learn about how you got to where you are today. So
Appreciate
um yeah, let's talk about the founding story. How did it all start?
that. Yeah, well, it's about 5 years ago now, maybe six. I can't remember. I started meeting with a lot of local nonprofits. While I had this app called WeVoo, you could shop, support your favorite charity. And by meeting these local nonprofits, what happened was they started asking me to volunteer and mentor some other participants. That app didn't work out, unfortunately. I made a lot of mistakes and learning lessons. I actually just had a flashback to relaunch that app at some point, but
Hmm.
one day figure out how it would actually work. But going back to the story, yeah, so I actually joined a venture capital firm and I started volunteering it more and more and mentoring. I was really enjoying the venture capital. It was more of an accelerator model, but I ended up meeting a lot of cool VCs around there, Chicagoland. And then I just kept seeing myself in Chicago, Southwest, under resourced communities, mentoring job seekers and entrepreneurs as well, actually. And there's one entrepreneur that really made me take a leap of faith where I was mentoring him on a weekly basis. He had a music studio where he had to figure out a recurring revenue stream. And his name is Silk. He ended up winning Alumni of the Year of this nonprofit called IC Stars. He also won a $30,000 grant where they had to get that
Wow.
big check right on stage.
Yeah, yeah.
It was their annual event, and it's probably, I think, end of 2016 or early 2017. And right around that time, right at that event, Silk goes, he has the check, he's giving a big speech. He goes, I want to give a shout out to Matt Strauss, who's here in the audience. Please stand up. There's 1,000 people there, and I'm next to the CIO
Wow.
of Illinois government and Accenture, and I started crying like crazy. And that's when I realized that my passion was, in venture capital and technology, but maybe it's more for something else, right? And helping people that need extra access. And so that's when I realized that there's something out there that could be built to help, increase opportunities. I didn't really know what it was still, though.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's amazing. I mean, like to this day, I'm like trying to find a way to give back to that community. I was like, involved with Big Brother, Big Sister. And that's something that I always that kind of stuff is definitely something I want to always be involved in. So I understand a bit of what you're talking about, but definitely not to the extent that you've experienced and helped the community out. So how does it work exactly, the software?
Yeah, so what I learned along the way is job seekers that are, we say, overlooked, right, or under resourced, but overlooked, often want to get a great job and get and keep it, healthcare benefits, etc. But what we've learned is due to minimal social capital or access to a bigger network, right? If you just moved here from out of the country or whatever, living under resourced community, they often rely on nonprofits like Big Brother, Big Sister, or urban leagues of the world, or their high school's career counseling office, or college, or whatever it might be. And we found out the staff members at those organizations, the frontline case managers, career
Hmm.
coaches, career counselors, they're often using outdated technologies to best equip their job seekers to reach their fullest potential. For example, half of their time is spent on recruiting participants to their programs, finding more employer partners, and tracking what applications have happened. So we thought if there's a way we could better equip those frontline staff members, we'll do well. So we built a tool in 2018, went live. It was more
Mm-hmm.
around the barriers to employment, like determinants of health and jobs. Then we launched a job board. In 2019, we started growing it. We rebuilt the software. Actually, just launched it recently, and that is we rebuilt it in 2021. But now what we've done is we figured out the job seeker and the frontline staff members challenges. Right, as I just mentioned, the employer needs to integrate in their applicant tracking system to automate
Mm-hmm.
the feedback loop of what happens in the application. Finish your application on a website, applied, interviewed, hired. All of those steps takes the employer's frontline recruiter, talent acquisition team member, 2 to 4 hours per nonprofit partner to report that
Mm-hmm.
back and forth.
Oh
So we
wow.
find out that corporations like Amazon, Aon, Southwest Airlines, all these big companies, they have a lot of partners they send out big emails to, but they actually only really truly effectively partner with five. We've only seen to 15 nonprofits per city, and there's obviously thousands
Mm-hmm.
across cities. So if there's a way to automate that feedback loop, then we can help the frontline staff member, find out when an interview request happens as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So when they get the notification, they can work with a job seeker right away, versus finding out, maybe a week or 2 weeks it's too late, or when they get hired, right? Are you ready for your first week of work, and so forth. So having that all in one place really can increase diversity and inclusion. Plus, access to real-time data to help people that might be going through their toughest times along the way.
Yeah, yeah. So the way I'm kind of understanding it is the the job seeker is still going to the same kind of like nonprofits and for help, but now the nonprofits are better enabled to actually be able to help them because this whole feedback loop exists. They know when there's a job available so that they can start sending candidates over to like companies like Amazon and whoever else they're partnered with.
Exactly. Correct.
Awesome, awesome, great. So we work with a lot of clients and help them with sales. And something that I've found repeatedly is that nonprofits are a tough market to sell to because as you know, it's at the end of the day, as great of a social impact you're having, it's still a business, right? And so, how do you go to market with a solution for nonprofits?
Yeah, it's why this business is really hard.
Yeah,
Well, we actually are close to hitting 1 million in revenue of just nonprofit and government contracts. We actually are
that's
just
amazing.
hitting the employer revenue. And so I totally agree that nonprofits and governments can be very challenging. We have about a 3 month average, time cycle to close, time to close. And yeah, our cost to acquire is right around probably 1,500 for a nonprofit. For government, it's just increased a bit. It's probably 3,000 ish, just still
Hmm.
good. Our our LTV to CAC is 3 to 1 for nonprofit, 8 to 1 for government and foundation. Average contract size is about 6,000 right now for a nonprofit, but it used to be 3,000. So I bring
Hmm.
this all up because yes, it is true they are hard customers to sell to. But what I have learned is they're becoming really loyal users where they're logging in 4 times a day. And yes, there are days where it's tough to figure out what the exact pain point is the most beneficial because there's a lot of challenges they face.
Hmm.
But what we realize is, can we build a free to paid model where they can have the first tier for free, where they can kind of self use it. Next tier they can upgrade, still basically self service, and then on the higher tiers, then they can really customize it and get what they want out of the system. It's kind of like a HubSpot for nonprofits. What
Hmm.
we built there, where they can create their own workflows or have a set workflow or upgrade to higher workflows and then get the data out of their system into their other databases. That's what we built, and then have jobs on top of it, all that good stuff. Um, but yeah, just to say my learnings is uh, free access with a strong self-serve. But we don't even have the best yet. We should have at the end of the year a good self-serve solution. Really will help increase, and figuring out what they really want versus trying to sell
Hmm.
every nonprofit and get them to upgrade.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, no, that's a good point. So getting your foot in the door with the free access. Something I've also found out about like nonprofits and governments too. It's super legacy like systems that they have that they're using, right? Do you find that, there's a lot of, I guess, like education that you need to do, or a lot of like mindset perspective shifting you have to do?
In government, yes. In nonprofit, not really. It's like what's interesting is you meet like the executive director, the CEO of the nonprofit's like the one that signs off on this, but they kind of lose touch with what's happening on the front line. Sometimes they're always fundraising or doing other things. The front line team, right? We figure out their three pain points: trying to find more employer partners, trying to track job applications and communicate with job seekers or participants, and then recruit people to their programs, right? Those are the three biggest things that then tied to bigger impact. If we can get them on that first one, right, trying to find employers and track applications, we'll get them in the
Mm-hmm.
system, keep them upgrade. But yeah, you're right on. Like for like big citywide contracts, or which we've closed a few, like it does take a really innovative leader to do so.
Gotcha. It's just about finding that really innovative leader, starting
Yeah.
the conversation with them, making them a champion.
Someone that sees that we're like trying to solve the problem from the bottom up, right? Government's very top
Mm-hmm.
down. There's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of movement at the bottom up movement, which is like everyone deserves equal access, right? Pretty obvious things that I think we all should hopefully believe in sometime soon. But yeah, not many government officials can really put their minds in the view of like somebody that's living in under resourced situations, right? So it really does require someone that wants to change the way the status quo is in government.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. So Matt, are you bootstrapped or funded?
Yeah, we've raised now 4 million so far. Um,
Nice.
right now we're at right around a 7.6 valuation, $1 million valuation. We're about to open up probably a Series A or growth or C plus round. We're not sure what to call it yet.
Right,
End of
right.
next or this quarter, so we're in October. And we'll probably be raising about a $4 million round then. We have one of our board members that is committed based on milestones, so we have to prove out this employer theses of the integrations, which we're getting close to.
Gotcha, gotcha. So, well, that's great, and congrats, on the growth and on the raise. Um, what have you learned throughout the whole, fundraising process? And again, going back to the market that you're working in and all of that, like I imagine it's different from like, I don't know, somebody building a tool for like IT, IT software or something like that.
Yeah, a few things. Mine's very social impact driven, so I knew people. I would find people that care about this mission that had wealth to invest and passion, right? I also knew that my advantage was I in venture capital. I met
Mhm.
one guy named Mark Ackler at Math Venture, which is a very successful VC in Chicago. He's also one of the nicest VCs I've ever met in my life. He introduced me to some of his LPs that ended up becoming my first investors. So Tom Gimbel, LaSalle Network, and Mike Gamson, who's one of the first employees of LinkedIn. Yeah, his introductions helped me a lot. So long story is like relationships is really what it takes, and getting to know people for your first raise or fee raises too, right? It's all relationship driven, but also tied to passion, right, and asking for advice.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. Cool. No, thanks for sharing that. So what do you have planned for the future? I know you're talking about these integrations, but what's your vision?
You know, I'm trying to figure out the right way to say this. Still, I still don't know how. Uh, First is we want to be in about 50 cities in the next 3 to 5 years. We're launching in Memphis, Milwaukee, and soon to be another city that I can't disclose yet soon. Right now, we're just mainly in Chicago. We're figuring out the right go-to-market strategy. Then what we realized from there, our employers, start off in one market with us, but then can bring us to all their cities. They're going to pay a SaaS model for
Hmm.
that. So with employers, it's actually SaaS or placement fees or both. So SaaS because the employer just say right now we launched in Chicago with a large corporation. They also have presence in Phoenix. So they want to
Hmm.
invite their partners in Phoenix, those 10 or 15, local nonprofits or schools, but they don't want to pay a placement fee, right? Because they're already working with them. So they can
Right.
invite them to the network and then they don't pay a placement fee, but we'll save time with them just coordinating and tracking applications. That's like their biggest pain point. But then they'll pay us more if we grow that network, and they get placement fees, right, from other partners that they haven't worked with before. So we're trying to incentivize them to give us a network effect. So I bring this all up because the first vision is growth, right? 50 markets. The other vision is, which is what I am most uncomfortable saying, is we're getting close to not having the data science ready, but the model that we estimate or we believe that we'll be able to suggest the right time it would take to get a full-time job and the organizations to go through to get there, right? So that way, you're not going to waste time at certain organizations that aren't giving you enough value.
Right.
Is one, right? And that's exciting to me because, right, we can actually do like a lookalike model that says, hey, Johnny Smith has a similar story as you, lives in the same neighborhood, got a job 3 months ago, it's the same similar job that you are looking for. But by the way, it'll be tough 2 months, right? If you do this type of work to get there, it's possible, but it's up to you now, right? That's the stuff that excites me the most, because then it's like up to people, right? It's tough when they're going through their toughest times in their life, but if they can see the light at the end of the tunnel, it makes it a lot easier, I believe.
Yeah, that's huge. I love it when I as you build a company and you get customers and you start collecting all this data. Like I love hearing about all right, like what can we do with this data?
Yeah.
And that's amazing that you'll be able to, hopefully when it's ready, like be able to provide that kind of insight. Like, hey, these are your best chances of employment at these employers that have hired the same people as you. And that just cuts down so much time. And also I think sets expectations as well. Right. So I think that's huge. That's huge.
Yeah, what's interesting to me is, we've had all different types of job seekers, different stories. So like people are challenging me, just focus on people with only criminal records, or focus only on refugees, or only on high school or college graduates. And I said, I don't think that's the right approach, because then the employer's looking, sounds like you're still a nonprofit, and we're not trying to be a
Mm,
nonprofit. We're trying to be a software company that
mm-hmm.
helps all nonprofits solve their challenges. So by doing that, what's been interesting is we have all different types of users, right? And we have like a persona type that's like a high school graduate or college graduate looking for their first job. And often, if they have barriers, sometimes they don't, right? But if they do, it's like a transportation barrier, clothing,
Mm,
use barrier, confidence in themselves, or a phone bill. We call it the last mile, or $100 barriers to employment. While the job seekers that might be coming out of prison that we work with, or jail, might have a lot more, right? Housing insecurities, mental health, um, childcare, right? The list goes on. And so if you look at just their profiles, right, the first interpretation is like, okay, this person coming out of prison is going to have a lot harder time
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
getting a job, while this person in college or high school have an easier time, right? Or finish college or high school.
mm-hmm.
But it's interesting though, it doesn't matter what really your barriers are. Yes, it does. It's a lot harder for the person coming out of prison. It's actually how you perceive your barriers, right? Can you have the mental confidence and belief in yourself that you can overcome this, or are you at such a tough or depressed state that you can't, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
also what we think we can do by measuring, because there's texting in our software. We can measure communication behavior, and surveys and confidence in themselves, to start to adjust that from a low state to a higher state. And typically the inflection, right, or the delta, is the case manager or career counselor really working with them within an hourly basis, not
Mm-hmm.
during weekends, right, but during the week, that they're in their
Right.
corner helping them, right? The more they feel like there's somebody finally there in their life, the best chance that they have to overcome those barriers.
That's nuts. Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense because if you're just fresh out of high school, but you don't have the confidence to believe you can get a good job, then you're not even gonna try. You're just gonna like half-ass it basically, and
Yeah.
then you go end up working at I don't know, like a restaurant or something like that. And then the same thing applies for someone out of prison. If they're hungry and they believe that they can get something, get a job, and get back into the world, they'll probably have a higher chance than someone that doesn't. And
Yeah.
that's a
It's
really good point.
it's like sports. Like the best athletes are extremely confident people. I played some college soccer. One of my roommates, his name is Shadow Sabele, unfortunately passed away, but he was
Mm.
the best player I ever played with in my life. And he's also so confident in his ability and never had a bad day in soccer, I swear. Um,
Yeah.
I was not as good as him. I didn't have the same confidence, so I never was able to play at that level. So life is basically what I say is confidence, right? If you believe in and you have the experience, you're gonna have a lot more confidence in things.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree with that 100%. I think like and I'm in sales, right? So that's why I always kind of like told my team, it's like guys, like half, no, like 80% of the game is just confidence. Like that's
Yeah,
literally what it is. Or like public speaking or something. It's like if you just show up and you're confident, like the rest you'll figure it out.
yeah.
You'll figure out the rest.
So true.
Yeah, that's amazing. And yeah, and how that's tied in this case, to the casework is really spending a lot of time with them. And them feeling like, yes, there is somewhere here to help me. Because, when my biggest struggle kind of like growing up, like so first it was like that coming from that background, then we finally made it out. And then afterwards, so my father passed away when I was 14, and then we could then ended up back into like a rougher kind of a state, especially financial state. It was a lack of guidance, right? Because you're just like, whether your parents are working, you have both parents, but they're working all the time, just trying to put food on the table, or you don't, you're missing a parent. And
Yeah,
then when you don't have that guidance, you don't know if are you making the right decisions? Like, I don't even know where to look, right?
mhm,
And then so
yeah,
you learn through mistakes, basically. And that's kind of like the life path. I feel like this life path I went through,
yeah,
um, until you finally end up figuring it out after all those trials and errors and mistakes.
yeah, yeah. Spot on. Did you also have a Big Brothers Big Sisters mentor as well?
I did not. No, no, I didn't. And that's why I got involved when I was in school and I saw it. I
Mhm.
was like, yeah, I want to get, because I wish I did.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. When
Yeah.
we just hired a team member that had a mentor through Big Brothers Big Sisters, and similar stories that you kind of brought up, and it really helped her along the way. So you've come out quite well though. So
Yeah, man. And I want to definitely like get involved as well then in the community, and even like go back to my high school and just talk to the kids, because the real world is very different, and from what it seems like it is, or from what like you hear that it is from your teachers and counselors and whoever else. It's very different. And I think there's some lessons that, you the youth, for me it's always about the youth, maybe because that's like my background that I'm coming from with my life story. But I feel like
mhm,
there are just some things that if you just know earlier, then you just make less mistakes. And that's it, right? Or just knowing that, taking the harder path and doing things the right way is going to suck at first, but it's going to pay off in the long term, right?
yeah,
Rather than going after the instant gratification, the quick wins, the quick rewards, and all of that, which just leads you astray, really.
I totally agree with that. I think it's so hard though for kids to think like that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's brain development, right? Unfortunately, like the
Yeah.
risk taking of, I mean, even the data that shows, not saying that everything ties to this, but the number of people that enter the prison system, I think, is the highest from like 16 or 18 to 23 or 4. And
Hmm.
then their aren't as developed then. So you don't, when you make a mistake in life, right, you don't think there's going to be as big of consequences. So it's so fascinating how development, all right, and how much we don't really know about ourselves, ties to who we become as well, and then obviously the environmental factors of living in areas or under-resourced communities, or losing a family member, right? Just has a correlation to all that. It's pretty crazy, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, exactly. And then if you don't have a good example to look towards and look up to and see, like, you know what, like they took the harder way. They forego like short-term rewards for long-term success, and they got it. And you have someone close to you, then okay, great, you can see it and it's real, and then you believe in it. Otherwise, yeah, you don't really get that guidance.
Yeah.
Um, cool. No, Matt, this is a great conversation, and as we wrap it up, what is one lesson that you or one piece of advice, sorry, that you would like to leave to, other early stage founders that are, in a maybe similar position as you or even earlier?
Ooh, there's a lot. I've made
Hmm.
probably every mistake you can make.
Let's
Um,
hear it.
I'll try to list off a few. First is your co-founder. Um, it's okay if you end up splitting up. Um, there's always going to probably be typically an original founder from my experiences, and then a not. I was the original founder, uh, and you're gonna either have the same exact vision or not, and it's okay, right? It's you're gonna realize this when you're competing or getting in arguments, not competing, in arguments about the littlest of things. And it's not that, you're not going to be friends ever again. It's more that, you just have different visions. So the earlier you get that organized, the better. The earlier you get that into a legal agreement, the better. As well. Everything is not going to happen to them, but there's a chance, it will. Yeah, surrounding yourself with your weaknesses. My weaknesses, it took me so long to agree on it, was product management and just managing, right? My skills are sales and fundraising, but and I have the drive, and that's where I fill up my everything else it goes less. So focus on your strengths and try to sell to smarter people on your weaknesses. It's okay to be wrong. You got to be humble. It's the weirdest thing when you're fundraising, is acting like the smartest guy in the room on some things, but also like the dumbest with other things, asking for advice. And you're meeting with ultra high net worth individuals, right? They're going to have a lot of opinions and ideas. Just because they say it doesn't mean you to do it, right? But at least open up, listen, and take advice. But also, put your foot down a little bit and share where they might misunderstood, some of the data that you have or information that you have, as well. And another one is like, have fun, enjoy the wins. Like, I've had health concerns through this over time. I've gained weight, lost weight. I am at a point, there's a good chance we'll be able to get through all this crazy times of, the economy and COVID and everything. Be able to raise around. Yes, it was brutal to get to here. Still is brutal. Like, we're still having some long days, but enjoy the smallest wins. Enjoy your team. Have fun doing it. Because if you don't, it drove me a little crazy. So
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, and then thank you for coming on the show, Matt. If
yeah,
our listeners want to connect with you, where can they find you?
yeah, just go to our website or find me on LinkedIn. Our website is RiseKit, RiseKit.co. The M is too expensive. Or find me on LinkedIn and reach out there. Matt Strauss. Appreciate you.
Amazing. Thank you, Matt.
Yep. Thanks for having me.